Imagine spending like 3 years, countless sleepless nights, and basically your entire life savings just perfecting a product.
Oh yeah, pouring everything you have into it.
Exactly. And you finally land a meeting with a major retail buyer. You walk in, you deliver this incredibly passionate presentation, and within 15 minutes, they just toss your idea in the proverbial trash.
Which happens all the time, honestly.
Right. And not because your product was bad or because your branding was ugly, but because the physical cardboard box it came in was, I don't know, half an inch too wide for their store shelves.
Yeah, it's brutal. It is a really brutal, high-stakes reality in the retail industry.
It really is. So today, we are decoding the minds of some of the toughest gatekeepers in business, looking at what actually convinces them to take a chance on you and your ideas.
It is a phenomenal space to analyze because, well, the margins for error are just virtually non-existent. In that environment, passion and hard work simply aren't enough. I mean, you are dealing with professionals whose entire careers depend on making these cold, calculated decisions about risk, space, and profitability.
Yeah, and we tend to focus so much of our energy on building the thing, whatever that product or idea is, that we completely neglect the actual mechanics of how to get someone else to buy into it.
We completely overlook the pitch itself.
Which is exactly why today's deep dive is going to be incredibly useful for you. Welcome to the show. Today is July 27, 2026, and our mission is to really understand the architecture of a successful pitch.
And we have some great source material for this.
We do. Our source material for this exploration is an insider guide from a leading retail channel management consultancy called Retailbound.
Right, written by Johann Jacob.
Yep, the company's president and founder. And he has over 15 years of deep, in-the-trenches experience launching brands into North American retailers.
And it's important to set the context here. The guide we are looking at is a literal tactical blueprint for product manufacturers who are trying to get their physical items onto the shelves of major big box stores.
Like Sam's Club or somewhere similar.
Exactly, places like Sam's Club. It outlines the really granular details of everything from packaging dimensions to navigating supply chain disruptions.
But the reason we are analyzing it today is because of what's written between the lines.
Yeah, the broader application.
Right, because while the literal focus is on retail shelves, the underlying principles form an absolute masterclass in persuasion, professional empathy, and partnership.
Whether you are trying to get a physical product into a national retail chain or proposing a massive new initiative to your company's board of directors,
or even just trying to convince a client to sign with your agency, the dynamics of getting past a gatekeeper are fundamentally the same. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with a concept that actually takes place long before you ever step foot inside a meeting room or open your mouth to pitch.
Yeah, that would be the concept of the silent salesperson, which is arguably, it's probably the most critical framework in the entire guide.
The silent salesperson, I love that term.
Right. The premise is that your product or your idea is constantly speaking for you through its physical and digital presence. If we look at the physical product first, the primary vehicle for this silent communication is the packaging.
Oh, for sure.
The text stresses that packaging has mere seconds to do a monumental amount of heavy lifting. In about 3 seconds, a box sitting on a shelf has to protect the product inside, catch the consumer's eye, clearly explain what the item actually does.
Reflect your brand's core identity.
Exactly, and visually differentiate itself from the 5 similar items sitting right next to it.
And that alone is a tall order. It really makes me think of setting up a dating profile for your product.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it needs to look really good, but it also has to prove that it's functional and, actually has substance. But there is a much harsher physical reality check that the source highlights.
The space constraint.
Yes. You could have the most innovative, aesthetically brilliant, award-winning packaging on the market, but if it doesn't fit the retailer's planogram, your product is just dead on arrival.
Absolutely dead on arrival. And for anyone unfamiliar with the term, a planogram is essentially the retailer's highly specific, mathematically optimized map of their store shelves.
It's like a blueprint.
Exactly. Every single inch of shelf space in a major retail store is accounted for. It is incredibly expensive real estate.
I think a lot of people outside of retail view a store shelf like a blank canvas, like you just put your art on it.
Right, just slide it right in there.
Yeah. But based on this guide, it's much more accurate to view the retail environment like the internal mechanisms of a Swiss watch. The buyer isn't just looking for a shiny, beautiful gear.
No, they are looking for gear with the exact right number of teeth.
Yes, one that can drop perfectly into their existing machine without jamming the whole system. If your box is slightly too tall, they literally cannot adjust the physical metal shelves just to accommodate you. The math breaks down.
That is a perfect analogy. The physical constraints completely dictate the reality of the sale. And that concept of the silent salesperson operating within strict constraints, well, it extends directly to the digital realm as well.
Because they're going to look you up.
Oh, they inevitably will. The guide points out that buyers will visit your website either right before your meeting to see if you are legitimate or right after to validate their impressions. Your website is your digital storefront, and it needs to be doing the pitching when you aren't in the room.
Which means it has to be way more than just a landing page with a logo. The text explicitly outlines the need for clear product overviews, demo videos that show the product in actual use, a compelling brand story.
And robust customer testimonials. You have to have those.
Yeah, and the text mentions a fascinating statistic here. Over 90% of consumers buy from brands they follow on social media. 90%.
That is massive.
When I look at that number through the lens of a retail buyer, it underscores that a brand's digital footprint isn't just a marketing vanity metric. It's a massive risk mitigation tool for the buyer.
Right. It proves there's demand.
Exactly. If you have a highly engaged social media following, you are proving to the gatekeeper that there is already a hungry audience waiting to buy. You are de-risking their decision to put you on the shelf.
You're bringing your own gravity to their ecosystem. But Jacob's guide also bridges this gap between the physical and the digital with a really crucial tangible artifact, the physical sell sheet.
Oh, right, the sell sheet.
Yeah, even in our highly digital age, when you walk out of that meeting, you need to leave behind a professional printed document. It has to include high-quality images, the product name, key features, exact pricing, and crucial logistical data like sexy you information.
And let's clarify that for a second, just in case.
Yeah.
A SCO, or stock-keeping unit, is essentially the unique barcode and identification number assigned to a specific product.
Right, it's how they track everything.
Yeah, so from a buyer's perspective, if a founder shows up without clear SKI information, it immediately signals that they don't understand warehouse logistics or inventory tracking. It just screams amateur.
Precisely. If you don't speak the language of their logistics, they assume you will be a nightmare to integrate into their system. So your silent sales team is a trifecta.
The packaging, the website, the sell sheet.
Exactly. The physical packaging that meticulously fits the planogram, the digital storefront that de-risks the purchase by proving consumer demand, and the professional sell sheet that provides the hard logistical data.
So you've built this incredible silent salesperson. Your packaging is flawless, your website is optimized, your sell sheets are pristine. But none of that matters if you walk into the wrong room and pitch to the wrong person.
Right. You can have the perfect gear, but if you try to put a watch gear into a car engine, it's useless.
Total mismatch.
Yeah, and that necessitates strict, ruthless reconnaissance before you even think about requesting a meeting. You have to tailor your pitch by deeply understanding the retailer's specific values and operational realities.
Which brings up a really common trap. I mean, why do so many creators, founders, and idea generators get so entirely caught up in their own origin story?
Oh, it happens all the time.
They walk into these high-stakes meetings wanting to talk about their passion, their sleepless nights, the spark of their genius idea, and they completely forget to ask if their product actually fits the ecosystem of the store they are pitching to.
It's because falling in love with your own journey is just a natural human bias. You know the sacrifices you made, so you assume those sacrifices hold value for the buyer.
Right, you think they'll care as much as you do.
But Jacob's guide is incredibly clear about how dangerous that bias is. The buyer does not care about your sleepless nights. They care about their customers' needs and their own corporate mandates.
Which makes sense. They have a boss too.
Exactly. The text provides a perfect, specific example of this disconnect. Imagine spending years developing a genuinely great consumer product, but you bring it to the pitch wrapped in heavy, single-use, non-recyclable plastic packaging.
Oh, no.
And you pitch it to a retailer whose entire brand identity is built around eco-conscious, sustainable living.
That shows a fundamental lack of situational awareness. It's essentially telling the buyer, I haven't spent 5 minutes researching your core values.
It is an immediate no, because accepting your plastic packaging would force the buyer to violate the core promise their store makes to its own consumers.
You haven't reviewed their vendor guidelines. You haven't looked at their current assortment.
Right. Reconnaissance means demonstrating professional empathy. You have to understand what their day-to-day challenges are and what overarching goals their bosses are measuring them against.
And once you understand the retailer's goals, you also have to understand who you are trying to displace. Because this guide makes it very clear that the ultimate unavoidable question every single buyer will ask is, why should we carry your product instead of the competition's?
It is blunt, but it is the reality of the business.
It really seems like a lot of founders view this as a zero-sum game of ego. Like they just need to prove they're the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, they want to tear down the other guy.
But realistically, as we established with the planogram, a store has finite space. If your product goes onto the shelf, someone else's product physically has to come off. You aren't just selling your item. You are essentially arguing for the eviction of another brand.
What's fascinating here is how deeply understanding your competition actually helps you position your own product as the smarter choice, rather than just resorting to bashing the other guy.
Nobody likes a trash talker.
Exactly. The guide stresses that you must know your rivals inside and out. It's not about sitting in the meeting and saying your competitor is terrible. It's about demonstrating with hard, verifiable facts why your product offers a superior solution. You highlight your better features, your more sustainable materials, your higher customer demand, or most importantly, your superior profit margins.
Right. It's the difference between saying our competitor makes cheap junk, which just sounds petty,
Shane, unprofessional, yeah.
versus saying, we noticed the current brand on your shelf has a 10% return rate based on industry data. Our improved design has reduced return rates to under 1%, which directly protects your bottom line. You are offering a strategic upgrade.
That is exactly how you do it.
So you've done the ruthless reconnaissance. You know exactly who you are pitching to, what their values are, and exactly whose shelf space you intend to take. You finally step into the room. Let's talk about the actual execution of the pitch.
Well, you realize very quickly that the spotlight is incredibly brief. The overarching theme during the actual meeting is proving that you are a highly valuable partner by deeply respecting the buyer's time.
Time is money.
Truly. Johann Jacob outlines a staggering reality in this guide. Retail buyers meet with dozens of brands every single week.
Dozens of pitches. The decision fatigue must be completely overwhelming.
It is mentally exhausting for them. Their job is to sift through a mountain of noise to find a few signals that will actually generate revenue. So, if you are lucky enough to secure a 15-minute window on their calendar, you absolutely cannot waste it on those lengthy origin stories we discussed.
Right, keep it brief.
The guide is emphatic about this. You must focus entirely on data. They want to hear about profit margins, current customer demand, your marketing support, and critically, your sell-through rates.
And let's break down the mechanism of a sell-through rate, because it really is the lifeblood of retail.
Please do.
So a sell-through rate measures how quickly a product moves from the store's receiving dock onto the shelf and into a customer's shopping cart, compared to the amount of inventory the store bought.
Right, the speed of sales.
Exactly. From a buyer's perspective, shelf space is expensive real estate, and sitting inventory is essentially a liability on their balance sheet. If your product just sits there gathering dust, it is actively losing the store money.
Yeah, it's a drain.
So a high sell-through rate proves your product functions like a well-oiled gear in their machine, generating cash flow quickly and reliably.
Exactly. You have to speak the language of their financial reality. And it's not just about what you say, it is about how you present the physical evidence.
Samples.
Yes. The guide highlights the necessity of bringing finished, retail-ready product samples and printed price lists. You do not bring prototypes tied together with wire, and you do not bring rough sketches.
No 3D printed half-finished stuff.
Definitely not. Finished samples prove that you possess the operational capacity to actually manufacture the good. When you dress professionally, rehearse your pitch so it's tight, and hand over a finished product along with clear profitability metrics,
It's a game changer.
it instantly separates you from the dozens of unprepared, overly emotional pitches they sat through that week. It signals profound respect for their time.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because as much as we just talked about the product and the data, the guide actually shifts the focus away from the item in the box. One of the key insights is that you have to highlight what makes you, the company, the founder, the supplier, different.
This is where you elevate from being just a vendor to being a true partner.
Exactly. The text asks you to consider operational advantages that have nothing to do with the product's actual features. Can you offer faster, more reliable shipping than the incumbent brand?
Do you have highly flexible delivery options?
Crucially, Can you produce the product domestically if global supply chains suddenly get disrupted? These are the hidden advantages that add immense value far beyond the physical widget you are selling.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes incredibly clear that buyers are not just looking for a cool item. The retail industry is profoundly volatile.
So true.
Supply chains break down, ports get backed up, ships get delayed. An empty shelf is a buyer's absolute worst nightmare because an empty shelf generates zero revenue but still costs money to maintain.
It's just a glaring hole in their store.
Right. If you can prove in your 15-minute window that you are a resourceful, reliable partner who can buffer them against those logistical shocks, say, by relying on domestic manufacturing, you become infinitely more attractive.
You're safe.
Exactly. You might even beat out a competitor who has a slightly better product, but a highly fragile global logistics network.
You aren't just selling them a product. You are essentially selling them an insurance policy. You are selling a reduction in their daily stress levels.
Precisely. You are selling them the confidence that if they champion your product to their boss, you aren't going to make them look foolish 6 months down the line when a shipment goes missing.
Nobody wants to look bad in front of their boss.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But it is important to note that even a flawless 15-minute meeting, even if you nail the data, prove your logistical superiority, and hand them the perfect sell sheet, it rarely ends with a signed contract right then and there.
Which brings us to the aftermath. The pitch is over, the door closes behind you. Now we enter the phase of navigating the realities of flexibility and playing the long game. And I actually want to play devil's advocate for a second regarding the guide's insistence on flexibility.
I also hear.
The guide strongly advises that if a buyer needs your packaging resized or a shipment schedule completely adjusted, you should do everything in your power to accommodate them. But shouldn't a brand fiercely protect its vision?
Whoa.
I mean, if you spend 2 years engineering a specific iconic package design that defines your brand identity, isn't it a sign of weakness to immediately cave and change it just because one retailer asks? Don't you risk diluting what made you special in the first place?
It is a very common fear among creators, and it feels intuitively correct. But we have to gently correct that assumption by looking at the harsh mechanical reality outlined in the source material.
Back to the planogram, right?
Okay. We have to go back to the planogram. Retailers are managing a massively complex, chaotic ecosystem. The text explicitly points out that they are dealing with constant supply chain delays, endless vendor issues, and shifting store layouts. They are trying to keep a massive ship afloat.
So their requests aren't like personal critiques of your art.
Not at all. The text advises you to be the partner who solves problems, not the one who creates them. If a buyer asks you to reduce the width of your packaging by an inch, they're almost never doing it to ruin your artistic vision.
They're doing it because of the math.
Right. They are doing it because the current size literally breaks the math of their shelving unit, or it dramatically increases their freight costs. If you stubbornly stand your ground in the name of brand purity, the buyer's only alternative is to drop your product entirely.
And just give the slot to someone else.
Exactly, to a competitor who understands the constraints of the ecosystem.
Wow. When you frame it around the mechanics of the shelf space, that flexibility isn't a weakness or a compromise of your vision. It is purely strategic survival. Accommodating those requests is the mechanism by which you build trust.
Exactly. You are proving through your actions that you are the reliable, problem-solving partner you claim to be during the pitch. And that long-term perspective naturally leads to the final reality check in the guide.
Which is persistence.
Persistence. The text is very candid. Even if your pitch is flawless and your product is perfect, you might not get an immediate purchase order. Rejection, or at least delayed acceptance, is simply the default state of the industry.
And that requires a lot of mental resilience.
It does. But the guide doesn't just say be tough. It gives you the mechanical next steps. You follow up with a highly professional thank you email.
Keep the connection alive.
You concisely reinforce the key financial benefits of your product, and you keep the lines of communication open. The text notes that many successful brands do not land their first retail placement until months or sometimes even a year after that initial meeting.
A whole year later.
Wow.
Yeah. This raises an important question for you, the listener, regarding how you handle professional rejection. According to Johann Jacob's decades of experience, the brands that eventually dominate the shelves aren't necessarily the ones who delivered a magical first pitch.
They're just the ones who didn't give up.
They are simply the ones who stayed persistent, remained positive, and continuously refined their approach based on the buyer's feedback.
It's not a single dramatic sprint. It is an absolute marathon of relationship building. And that follow-up email isn't just about being polite. It's a calculated, strategic move to keep your silent salesperson active in their inbox.
You're absolutely right.
So what does this all mean? When we look at this entire roadmap from Retailbound, we see a masterclass that transcends the literal act of getting a cardboard box onto a shelf at Sam's Club. The architecture of successfully navigating gatekeepers remains incredibly consistent across any industry.
Really, across the board. First, you're a silent salesperson. Your digital footprint, your presentation materials, the very packaging of your idea. It must be completely flawless, de-risking the decision before you even speak.
Yes.
Second, your reconnaissance must be absolutely ruthless. You cannot rely on your passion. You have to deeply understand the mechanical needs of the gatekeepers and exactly whose space you are trying to take.
Know the room.
Third, when you finally secure your brief window of attention, your pitch cannot be a self-indulgent origin story. It has to be ruthlessly focused on data, profitability, and how you solve the gatekeeper's specific problems.
And make their lives easier.
And finally, your attitude after the pitch has to be characterized by relentless flexibility and persistence. You have to realize that creating the product or coming up with a brilliant idea was really only half the journey.
If that.
Right? The real art, the part that separates the ideas that thrive from the ones that lie in a notebook, is the ability to build relationships, speak the language of your buyer's constraints, and remove friction from their lives.
It requires a profound, often uncomfortable shift in perspective away from yourself and entirely onto the person sitting across the table.
It really does.
And to that end, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought inspired by the guide's concept of the silent salesperson. We've spent this time talking about product packaging and corporate websites, but take a look around your own workspace right now, or pull up your own professional digital footprint.
Oh, this is good exercise.
If you are the product, what is your silent salesperson communicating to the gatekeepers in your own life before you even open your mouth to pitch your next big idea?
Oh, that is a fantastic, slightly terrifying question to end on. Because whether we consciously realize it or not, we are always pitching, and our silent salesperson is always working.
Always working.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mechanics of persuasion and partnership. We hope this exploration gives you the concrete tools to walk into your next high-stakes meeting, prepared, deeply empathetic to the person across the table, and ready to turn your ideas into a tangible reality. Keep asking the hard questions, keep refining your pitch, and most importantly, keep learning. We will see you next time.